We are back, and sorry about that for the slight delay there. We just had to fix a few things to make sure the players are all good to go, and there are no further issues going forward in the broadcast. So although we had to go to an extra break, that should be the only extra break we're going to have today, as I believe the players are getting close, if not actually ready to go into match number 1, Sottle. We've got Viper versus Bozzzton, and if you were not tuned in a little bit earlier, it's a 10-deck format. After 6 bans, the players get 4 decks left. They need to win with 3 of those decks, and those are the 4 classes you can see in front of you now that each player has left. What are you making of it, Sottle?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess quick cheat sheet for the viewers at home, how to interpret this. The Paladin and the Shaman, you're pretty much going to be seeing every series. The real interesting points are what the other 2 decks then are alongside that. So we're seeing Druids on both sides, which does seem to be extremely common throughout. That does seem to be the 3rd deck that is being left up by the players after their bans. But then the 4th ones differ. We do have Hunter being left up on Bozzzton's side, which is kind of interesting because looking at the stats so far, it does seem like Hunter has been one of the best performing decks when it's been left up in that position. So I'm not sure if there's something specifically about Viper's lineup that's making him feel comfortable with doing that. And you can see straight away, Bozzzton going, wow, I get to play Hunter? Sick, right, let's get on with this. And queues up that Hunter straight away, going into this Highlander Paladin, not a Murloc Paladin, from Viper's side.
Yeah, and I think you can see the added effects, right, of not only Hunter being good versus the Shaman and the Paladin potentially, depending on archetype, of course, but also, well, if Druid's being left up, sometimes Hunter just goes too fast for Druid, but then also the other options I would say next in line are like Warlock and Mage, which I think Hunter's good against both of those as well. So suddenly, you know, if Hunter's the one that's left up, I feel like the chances of getting a win with that deck out of all the options is so high that I don't blame Bozzzton at all here. Just queue it in, get the game won, and then crack on with the rest. Well, just a reminder as well, although we're talking about formats, if you tuned in last week and then you tune in now, this is not last hero standing though. So once the Hunter gets the win, it's gone, it's finished, it's done. So it's not like Bozzzton can go, yes, I've got Hunter and now I'm going to sweep with it. Those days have gone.
Yeah, and just to echo that, having now had a full look at the sheet provided by Lorinda, Hunter in Europe actually has a positive win rate in every single matchup it has played in the Swiss proceedings over the last couple of days.
I can see it though, right? Because for me, I think Highlander Hunter's just good in terms of the overall game of Hearthstone right now, not just this format. And then I feel like it doesn't lose too much. It doesn't have any harder matchups than it would anyway with these sort of weird decks being left up. Highlander Paladin, well, Hunter can still pressure a lot, has some good value, it seems fine. And then the aggro decks, Hunter can fight very well against aggro decks because they have some good little early game minions themselves as well as decent removals. So I feel like Hunter's just well positioned to take on some stuff. And no, it's not your favorite.
No Demon Hunter. No, unlucky. I can actually raise myself here even. Actually, Hunter has a positive win rate across all regions in every matchup that it has played. Not just in Europe, having now checked the sheet in full. So yeah, seems pretty well positioned, but Finley on 2 is a hell of a drug. We'll see if that will help Viper get out of this one. It does take double recruits, which is, you know, decent. It's a solid upper tier hero power for most of these board-based matchups, but I was really hoping to see that Demon Hunter come out.
The interesting thing against Hunter specifically is Hunter has a good way to deal with tokens, and it's often, or can often be cheaper than the 2 mana that Viper might be committing to doing it, if that makes sense. So like Desert Spear, yeah. Desert Spear not only deals with these 2, but deals with the next 2 and the next 2 after that, right? And there are other cards that work in a similar fashion as well. So it's just interesting that I wonder what the other 2 choices were, because we didn't get to see that.
So my point here was going to be twofold, Raven. Firstly, are there other cards that do equivalent things to Desert Spear? Because I personally feel like Desert Spear is a beating in a lot of matchups against Hunter where no other real card does the trick. And secondly, I think Viper was pretty secure against Desert Spear anyway because he did have that Acidic Swamp who's sat in hand that you see coming out now for the punish.
Yeah, that is true. I'm definitely talking about just broader matchups as opposed to exactly Viper having the punish, but I don't know. I feel like either the minions Hunter plays have tons of health anyway, so the 1/1s aren't going to be too much for trouble, or I will just double check again because lists are just being a bit finicky at the moment. Let me see.
They are, yes.
Okay, so there is Unleash the Hounds. I'm going to throw that one out there. And also as well, Bozzzton is running a Snake Trap along with a Phase Stalker in his list. So, I don't know. I feel like there's just enough that I would just be interested to see what the other two options were.
I'll just end this discussion on Odd Paladin was a heck of a deck, right?
It's true. It's true. I will not argue that one with you. Zephyrus is a good clear against 1-mons.
Yep. Keep them coming, Good. I'm liking this list. It's developing.
I wonder if... So, Bozzzton has a couple of options here. He could go Hammer and Fairy Dragon, swing with the Hammer, whether that's to kill the Ooze or go face. We can discuss that later. And what he could do is actually leave the Mana Saber in stealth, so it's unlikely it gets dealt with, and then he can go into his Tiamat turn next turn, which I think will be more powerful than swinging it now to kill a 3-3 or a 3-1, and then having Varanus as an option. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he could hold this Mana Saber if he wanted to, but if he is going to go for Zephyrus, then yes, the swing makes more sense.
Yeah, this is the line I like because you get Holy Nova this way, which, you know, it takes a few reps to upgrade your expectations from Consecration to Holy Nova in the new expansion. And the difference there is enormous because of the heal that you get on your Mana Saber as well from the Holy Nova. So yeah, that's the line that jumped out to me immediately at the start of the turn, so happy to see Bozzzton going for that one.
Yeah, 100% makes sense. You know me though, Sal. Love to get that hammer equipped. Start swinging for free. And
especially
now,
with the Ooze gone now as well. Like, this Scam Hammer is just riding its way to the bank.
Well, I think then the only answer is the Zephyrus, right? From Viper.
Yeah.
If you want to, and then you even have to set it up, because I've found, even in the past day or so I've been playing, that Zephyrus often does not want to give me weapon removal. I need to just persuade him sometimes. It can be pretty tough.
Look, Zephyrus, sit down over here. I'm going to tell you a story about how good Stormhammer is and how important it is for you to kill it for me.
And how often I have died with this card. I do like this, though. It does quite heavily protect the Mana Saber anyway. And again, I just think bringing Tiamat out next turn is a big, big deal and might be enough for Bozzzton to really grapple hold of this game. Kill Command, not really going to make too much of an impact into this turn. There's no relevant targets for it on board, and also it's not like Bozzzton's close to closing out the game here on his opponent on a smooth 29 health.
Yeah.
Everything's not the right shape. He needs another desert space, all.
He does, yeah. It's not the right shape on board. It's also really scarily not the right shape for next turn, because Tiamat looks great here. Even if he went Divine Shield to like fully protect its health, it comes down as a 6/6, and then it's such a big punish to get Pharaoh's Blessing next turn, which we can see Viper does have in hand, but you know, Bozzzton will still be looking at it as the potential like on-curve power play for Viper this turn.
Does he ever play Varanus? Just say...
the lowest value Varanus of all time.
Well, the problem is, and I do see Bozzzton going for the Tiamat, but my only suggestion for Varanus, definitely influenced by the old cast division, but it's... What are you going to Varanus in this matchup, right? There's no clear things outside of an Alexstrasza turn that really says, like, yes, Varanus Unleashed, let's go, you know? So, maybe just getting the big dude down on the board and then just chaining into another big guy was just good enough, and because Tiamat's a lot more reactive and flexible than Varanus is, maybe it was worth getting it down on a smaller board. It's going a bit deep, but I do understand the Tiamat here.
The problem is that it doesn't solve anything. All the punishes for this that I was talking about are even more brutal if you play Varanus, because it's the same size essentially, right? And you don't affect the board state in any way. So if this same turn just happens, you're going to get punished even harder for not playing the Tiamat potentially.
Sure, I think for me is the Tiamat can have Rush and Divine Shield, right? Or Rush and Wind Fury, which could then be a bit more reactive on that following turn. Now, though, there is the old Varanus and his best mates, the Unleash the Hounds, because that is so sick on turn 9. You just almost always clear the board. It's so good into an Alexstrasza turn, because you just kill it. It just doesn't matter what they get.
Yep.
So now, what if it's... I feel like the Stormhammer needs to be equipped, so it's bothering me. It's been in hand all game.
Yeah, it's an ugly turn. I definitely take your point about, like, against Pharaoh's Blessing, Tiamat Rush Divine Shield would definitely have solved this problem a lot better, but you do end up floating a lot of mana that way. I don't know how much of a problem that ends up being.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, Varanus was a tough call to make. It's not like, Varanus turn. You know,
Yeah.
it was unfun in every way, but we do get the hammer down. Fairy Dragon comes down with the help of the Mana Saber's extra mana buff as well, and then slowly leading into that Varanus Unleash the Hound swing turn.
Reporting for duty.
How about a new
These 1/1s are proving to just starting to pile up on Bozzzton just a little bit, though. That Varanus Unleash the Hounds is going to have to do some serious work.
And it can as well. I don't think there is too much card draw really available for Viper in this Paladin deck. So if there is the big... Ooh.
It's going to take a full clear now. I mean, yeah, sure. I get it.
Okay.
It's scary, but I get it.
Doesn't overly care about face tanking because it's not like Paladin has tons of burst knocking around anyway. I'm just going to check. There's a Hand of Adal. And that's it. For card drawing this Paladin. Outside of Sir Finley potentially getting the Warlock hero power, for example, but that's past us now. So yeah, once Bozzdton's dealt with the majority of Viper's hand, it really is just that hero power keeping him up, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, there's a bit of generation, I guess, with like the Sandwasp Queen that we've already seen, and then Angling Rod as well. You can pop out some Murlocs, but yeah, in terms of actual card draw, not a great deal going on. But right now it's Bozzzton looking like the man who needs some card draw. I know one of your favourite high horses to mount, Raven. The lack of Hunter card draw historically in Hearthstone.
Yep, it hurts me every time I think about it, but I'm just going to give a quick deck check. Bozzdton, although someone I consider a friend and a good Hearthstone player, has disappointed me today, as there is no Nagrand Slam in the deck. Bottle. Imagine how good Nagrand Slam would be as a top deck in.
Raven, the clue is in the name. It's called NA Grand Slam. They only play that card. They only play that card in NA. Okay.
Well, not the worst pick up there, actually. The dog doesn't get to trade, but I think Bozzdton is more than happy with having a target that isn't the prime for that. Jesus Corrupt. That's huge.
Yeah. It's looking like he might need some of this prime action sooner rather than later to compete with the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza that's going to come down pretty soon, although his board state left remaining after this is already pretty promising. The only real issue here is the Stormhammer swing, which he just really, really does not want to make, but needs to make for the full clear.
I think he can afford not to here.
Yep.
Also, because he has a dragon in hand, right, he can activate it for an extra swing next turn 100% of the time. I'm just glancing at Bozzdton's Hunter list. It is an interesting one, because he's running like May of Shadowstung, he's running Boom Pistol Bully as well. Singular, of course. And it's just interesting card choices for what I would expect the meta to be going into this. Doesn't really line up with my expectations. Now Bozzdton. Oh! Easiest play of your life. Snipe that Alexstrasza.
Easy. Just literally always hits the A-card.
What you get for not playing Nagrand Slam. Not looking too hot now for Bozzdton as he did. And this is the outcome of him using the Unleash the Hounds earlier on. And it's not to say that Unleash the Hounds earlier on was a bad play, but this is what Bozzdton now could not respond to. He does lose game number 1 to Viper and takes a loss with that Hunter. Viper getting the Paladin out of the way, Sottle. And again, I don't want to harp on about how bad Paladin and Shaman are at the moment, but getting just a win with game 1 is fantastic.
Yeah, even though there wasn't actually a Murloc Paladin involved, I will say that Unleash the Hounds did look a little bit fishy. It was a really bad turn if he didn't unleash there, I will say that. He would have had to have faced up to just being behind for a turn. And then the way it would have panned out, he probably would have had to have Varanus unleashed like the next turn anyway, so he wouldn't have got to wait for it to line up against the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. So maybe just the same world just happens in that regard, and Bozzzton was just spot on in using the unleash there, but you saw how stranded the Varanus got after that point, right? So you have to bring it up as a talking point, but I don't really think there's anything Bozzzton could have done to dig himself out of that one.
Yeah, I think the biggest point for me was, in a perfect world, you hold Unleash Varanus and have a sick board clear with it, right? That happens a lot of the time. But, as you mentioned, he would have had a bad turn if he didn't play Unleash. But you recover from that turn 100% of the time, right? Because you have Unleash Varanus. And Varanus is on the board. And that's the big difference for me. And the big difference that would have been maybe impactful in that game had it gone a little bit differently is Varanus wouldn't be in hand at the end of the game. It would be a 7-6 on board. Maybe that changes things. I don't know. But yeah, it was a close one. It was a definitely tough call to make because Bozzzton, as we said, did not really have many options. But Viper taking a win on that Paladin means that he has a choice of Shaman, Druid, and Mage to go with, and because he got a win on his Paladin, it means that if he doesn't want to, he doesn't even have to play the Shaman deck. He could just focus on the Druid and the Mage instead.
He certainly could, yeah, and he is playing a pretty standard build of the Spell Druid, it looks like. Or actually, I'm on Bozzzton's list right now. Let me just fix that real quick. Viper, yeah, pretty much same story, actually.
Same sentence again.
Yeah, is playing the Kael'thas still, which I know we've seen some players cutting out. So we will see if that's going to come out here at all. But I personally am surprised to see these, like, quote, standard druids performing as well as they were. I know Gia took, like, a resounding victory in this argument on the APAC broadcast, but I can't help but, based on our testing, side with Darek, because he was just, basing off what we put into yesterday in terms of testing the matchup. Druid was just getting stomped over and over and over again until we switched to one of the lists that, like, didn't end up qualifying, the much more anti-aggro list that was then being successful. But it seems based on all the lists that have qualified for Druid being just kind of the classic spell Druids right now, that just hasn't borne itself out in the Swiss.
I will say, Viper is running, it's very standard with Kael'thas, one Mount Seller. He is running 2 Bees in the list.
That card is essential in this
and
format.
Maybe that's the trick, is it's just enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it's not going, I'm going to go full anti-aggro. It's like, oh, well, this deck's decent. I'll just put 2 Bees in it because the deck's still decent afterwards, except I've got game versus aggro. But anyway, we'll talk about maybe Druid later on. We've got ourselves I would say, a good old-fashioned Shaman mirror, and that's pretty true because it's been a long time. I don't remember last time.
It has, yeah. And this is a matchup that we tested a decent amount as well. And in my experience, I was playing this from the Evolve Shaman side against Darek playing Totems, I think the majority. And I kept feeling really secure because I would have a way in hand of dealing 2 damage, right? Like an Invocation of Frost for a 2-1 rush, Stormforged Axe in the list that I was playing as well. I'd have that in the opening hand, and I would think, okay, game over. And then Darek would just coin like a mana type, like a 3 health totem, and then things would go very, very badly wrong. And so I started mulliganing specifically for combinations of cards that dealt 3 damage. So, those 2 cards in combination, or with the Orc Merchant to do the 1 extra damage. I think if you're able to do 3 from hand in the early game, you're set up pretty well to stop this Totem Shaman from snowballing. But Viper doesn't really have that luxury right now.
He does not. The luxury Viper does have is he is fairly experienced in playing slower Shaman decks. As he is a fan of his own twist on things, I'd say. So maybe this format does suit him a little bit more than some of the other players. I will note as well that the token or totem Shaman is much less aggro than I gave it credit for. A lot of the time, I think I discovered this a lot in testing we had, was you can hold back a lot and just combo out a board, right? And then the problem is, as you mentioned, well, your totems aren't 2 health anymore because you've done Totemic Reflection. So now your totems are 4 health or maybe 5 health and so on.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, if that board doesn't get removed instantly, the snowball starts rolling, doesn't it? So I will say, although Bozzzton doesn't look like he's getting off to the most aggressive start in the world, it doesn't mean he's just straight up losing as an aggro deck. He's just can play it a little bit slower.
I wonder.
Yeah, and you see what is really a pretty ugly turn from Viper, where he just freezes a 1-3 and then rushes his 2-1 into a 1-1 totem. Of course, the Shaman Carnival has something a little to say about that, because 3 out of 4 times that was a 0-2 totem, which would have then been a much better time for Viper, but Bozzzton got the 1-1, which was the nuts outcome for him on that turn. But Viper has to respect the totem regardless of what it was, because of this card, Totemic Reflection. Such an enormous punish for him. You can't let Shaman snowball out this quickly. Yeah, Viper, exactly. Viper, I am with you. We don't often see eye to eye on these things, but I share your frustration with Shaman Totem.
Does that make it? I feel like that makes it better that it's 2-2 now, right? Viper can
Since
feel
the
less
buff is
bad.
happening. Yeah, Viper was reacting before he saw the Storm's Wrath come down, where, yeah, this is now the good one for him. But I think you also saw Bozzzton reacting to, oh, I got the 1-1, because he knew he was casting Storm's Wrath.
Yeah.
In which case, just any other invoke now will deal with his totem.
And this is where I start to wonder about how Viper deems this, how he deems the way he's going to approach this. He could coin out the Devoted Maniac and either trade off the Elemental or the Totem and still have a 2-2 left on the board if he wants. He could take it slower because he does have a lot of value later game. One thing I will say is the Mogu is probably going to be played at a reasonable cost this game, because Bozzzton will naturally want to go wide. So that is definitely a help for Viper as well. Some more maybe on-spot ways to deal 3 health.
I genuinely, in testing, do not think I evolved a Mogu Flesh Shaper a single time while playing this deck. It was very frustrating looking at my hand and seeing that thing with a base cost of 9. Like, it is just such a big difference.
Gonna go for the Maniac. Viper does have Farsight, he does have Slurper as well to fill out his turns going into 5 and 6.
Yeah, it's ugly to leave yourself without a turn 4 here that reacts to the board, though, because sure, you solve the problem short term. You can be fairly confident that Bozzzton is going to keep generating totems fairly quickly, but though as I say that, I guess he doesn't. Now Viper does actually have a turn off where he doesn't necessarily have to react to a totem immediately, which is a very big deal for him because he had no way to react to a totem this turn.
Bozzzton, once again, can't really do the totem thing because of his choice of play last turn. Means that he is a little bit locked. But again, he can just totem up and just push a little bit. I don't think he needs to rush this out too much. He has actually got a ton of damage in hand right now.
Yeah. Be against just seeing Totem and Storm's Wrath here. Try and get outrange of an Invoke again by getting a 3 health Totem down here. Of course, this is a turn where another card in Shield of Galakron becomes unlocked as an Invoke for Viper. Looks solid.
Yep, overloads him back to 5 next turn, which is still fine. He can Hero Power Totemic Reflection along with Totemic Surge twice because they got 0. So he's got a lot of options, but there's Bogspine Knuckles, Mr.
Yeah,
Settle.
Viper enormously rewarded for his play last turn where he drew a 0-mana Novice Engineer and then just did not play it. And I was going to bring up the idea that maybe this is just to say, well, that's 1 extra card draw to getting to Bogspine Knuckles so that I can then have that 2-drop evolving into a 3-drop for free on this turn. It's a real heads-up play.
Yeah, and honestly, although it seemed fine to just play it, what does a 1-1 accomplish right now? Nothing. It might accomplish something a little bit more. Is that 3-3? But Viper starts to make a choice here because he does have Shield of Galakron, which will get a taunt on the board, but for me, because the Elemental doesn't actually kill anything, and the totem that's there is a healing totem, I think if I am sat in Viper's seat, I want that totem to be very dead this turn.
I agree. The Knuckles kill the totem, and that is very exciting to me if I was in Viper's shoes.
I've seen when my opponent makes about 4 healing totems that have got a lot of health and attack. It hurts because you cannot kill them.
Blood and plunder.
Everyone, buckle in. Here comes the evolve.
Yeah, I think there was a turn in... Ooh, a 5-1. Kind of ugly. Phalanx Commander is decent at 5 though. 5 mana Yeti is not far off average. Yeah, there was a turn in testing, I think, with like Derek traded a 5/5 into a 4/4 or something with 4 healing totems on board that I described as the best trade I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
Yeah, those things do get kind of disgusting if multiple healing totems start getting spawned.
Speaking of disgusting, though, Evil Totem Totemic Reflection is probably just the best totem to get it on, because this deck does struggle with card draw a lot of the time as well. You would only really have the Mana Tides, and even then they often get cleaned up because it's not like you can wait to play Mana Tide, Totemic Reflection, so on.
But no, Raven, you make 4 of them at a time. Have you never played this deck before? That's clearly what you do.
Evil Totem, though, I feel is a little bit more consistent in that it just gets you those lackeys that then really open up the game.
Yeah, agreed. Evil Totem, I'm a huge fan of duplicating lackeys just being such powerful, such fluid tools.
And the reason you see all of the buffs go down, even though it might feel a little bit weird, it's like, oh, make them 6/4s. Oh, should you not have saved that for the swing turn? It's like, sometimes, but how many totems is Bozzzton plan on really making for the rest of the game? And if he makes them this dangerous, as you can see, Viper is only on 15, and if Viper wants to swing that weapon at something, well, he's going to pay for it with his life.
Well, it's very crucial for that reason, and so that the Phalanx Commander can't value bump one of the totems and then evolve off the weapon swing afterward. If the second buff didn't come down, it would be value bump, and Viper would only be taking 4 instead of 6, and then there would be just a brand new 6-drop on the board from the evolve, plus everything else that Viper plays. And 6-drops are dangerous when you're going for lethal, because there are Kartoot Defenders and Sunwalkers and Safeguards and things like that all hanging around at 6 mana that can mess you up.
Just imagine how many times you've been emotionally destroyed by Mage playing Power of Creation, and then you'll understand how good 6-drops are.
That's the card that emotionally destroys you when you buy it as Mage. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because it's one of the many spells Yogg-Box just cast.
Ah, now you're talking.
The respect.
Yep.
Everything has to be traded in, and Viper didn't get a strong evolve board, and suddenly Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt. That's a lot of damage.
This could be lethal off the spell lackey here. No, it doesn't get it. I think another Lightning Bolt. Another Lightning Bolt would have been lethal, yeah. Well, one of these cards is very much in your deck. Yep, that one.
Spell damage? Okay.
The fact that he rolled Healing Totem again with the Totemic Reflection does make the trade quite exciting. But then the fact that your opponent's at 15 and you have 8 points of burn in your hand makes the face quite exciting.
The problem is, though, if you don't... What if he just puts the Lightning Bolt into this and still uses Totemic Reflection?
What if you just, like, evolve your lackey, use the Totemic Reflection, go face, and then just say, clear all of this?
It's tough, though, because he evolves a 6-drop, 6-mana 3/3 into a 7-drop, right?
Yeah.
I think I like the Lightning Bolt, because it's way harder to do now, right?
So what do you have? 2, 4, 8, 9 on board, Lava Burst is 14, so the 4/5 would have to die for Viper to survive? Okay. Yeah, seems reasonable.
And him not trade into it to die, right?
Yep.
So I think that's a big ask, actually.
Yeah, agreed. Seems fine.
And also using the Lightning Bolt pushed an extra point of damage as well that turn, so...
Yeah, that's true. You buy one back. Yeah, you're only losing 2 damage. That's a good point too.
This might just be a little too slow for Viper to deal with here. I think he just needs to evolve something and hope, right? I don't like putting it into those terms, but sometimes it's just the way it is.
It's looking that way. Yeah, he does get Mogu down here for 1, and he's going to manage to do in his very first game what I did not manage to do in any of mine. So well done.
One gold star for you, Mr. Viper.
1 value bump. Okay, he's going to sacrifice a 3-drop.
I like that.
Be able to attack. Yep, makes sense.
And hold on. Okay. Yep. None of those are taunts. Some of those are actually pretty bad outcomes. And that is a game. Bozzzton evens it up, shaking the head from Viper, but honestly, for me at least, Sottle, from what I've seen and played of Galacron Evolve, I was playing when Jambraid posted it, I think a week or so ago now. I feel like if you didn't get a really good early evolve off, whether it's from Hares or along the same lines of an early Clanker as well, then you do struggle versus aggro. You can't keep up versus something that aggressive. I even have problems versus Hunter as well, even Highlander sometimes, because if you just don't get the evolve off, all your stuff's pretty bad. I mean, you talk a lot about how the Devoted Maniac, even in Shaman, is still, you're paying 4 mana for 2 very wimpy minions that don't do too much, whereas if they're just hitting you every single turn, the deck doesn't really run heal, it barely runs taunts, so you have to get that early evolve off to be able to just wrestle the board away from your opponent, and that just didn't quite happen for Viper there.
I don't think I necessarily agree with that. I guess it depends on like which half of the deck you're drawing, right? Because you don't necessarily need an early evolve if you draw invoke cards early on, because the sheer like piling on of the 2/1 rushes, if you draw enough of them, you're going to be able to pick apart a lot of boards from your opponent a lot of the time, and then you can kind of curve into the evolvey stuff later on. I just think in that case, I think when it comes down to Totem Shaman, it is just so hyper early game focused. And looking at Viper's list, he's not playing any of the Org Merchants that we were talking about before that can like do those extra 1 damage snipes, which I found really crucial in the list that I was playing. Like in the matches that I won with this deck against Totem Shaman, it was usually because, Invocation of Frost plus an Org Merchant like dealt 1 extra damage to just take them off the board completely on like a Mana-Tide Totem or a Storm's Wrath buffed up Totem or whatever else. 3 is a number that you have to do a lot of the time. We saw that multiple times in the early game there, and Viper was sort of struggling to do it. He was just about managing to do it, but not really getting there a lot of the time, and in the end, I think Critical Mass just overwhelmed him.
It really did, yeah, and I think we saw, again, as I mentioned during that game, was you can be, although it's a very aggressive deck, it spikes, right? So, like, we saw Bozzzton, he wasn't actually doing tons in the early game, but then he had the turn where he made the Evil Totem twice, buffed it up, and it's like, well, right, like, you either kill these or you're dead. So that was the first big question that Viper, although he answered, it wasn't that efficient and wasn't 100% either, which means it was just from that point, he was just behind. And as we saw, the lackeys are just nice as extra buffs, but I believe the players are getting into the next game. And these ones, as is the theme, I guess, from Asia Pacific that we saw earlier, lightning today. So I feel like these matches are very different to what we've had the previous 2 weekends.
Yeah, this is, I think I made this point last week where, it's kind of a reversal of fortunes where a lot of the time in Hearthstone, or maybe this was just in conversation with you and Derek like the other day, where like in historically in Hearthstone, a lot of the time, these like tempo decks, tribal based decks, Murloc Synergy, Pirate Synergy, curve out, buff up your board, be aggressive, seize the board, never let go. Those are the good decks. So those are the ones that we'd be seeing every week. Whereas when it would come to this week where we, kind of enter Bizarro world and we're looking at all the less powerful decks, we'd be seeing kind of more of the weird and wacky combo decks like, Egg Warrior, for example, would be coming out. But actually, in this metagame right now, a lot of the decks that are the actual good decks are actually quite involved and intricate and late game based and combo heavy. And these decks that are kind of more just, play your curve, buff up your minion, make good trades, kind of basic Hearthstone played incredibly well. These are actually a little bit weaker. So, it's bizarre to see because normally in most metagames, I would argue that we'd be seeing the exact reverse of this.
Yeah, I feel like we are, as we get into game number 3, having a bit of an interval. Because this is a matchup we could have cast last week, or the week before, as it's Highlander Hunter versus the Token Druid, or Spell Druid, depending on what you're calling it. But yes, it is pretty much the standard Druid list from Viper, except just 2 copies of Bees in there. There is a Kel'Thas, still Viper, still a fan. 1 Gift of the Wild, 1 Forest Aid as well is the top end.
Yeah, and I will just sort of clarify my point. I think Bees is essential. This might be a weird statement from those of you who have listened to me cast for a very long time to be hearing, and it's okay, I am okay. I have not been abducted and replaced with some kind of alien pod person. I think a lot of people have under-teched this week. Yeah, I know, right? But I think
hang on, I'm giving Crane a call.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my tenuous at best friendship with Crane has now finally broken. But yeah, I think Waste Wardens, Stormforged Axes that we're seeing, the Org Merchants that we're seeing from some players. Every list that I've seen and every one of those that I've tested, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. And just tech cards as a philosophy kind of makes sense because you are narrowing down the field so precisely. You get to pick so precisely what you're playing against because all 10 decks are there, and then you get rid of the 6 that you don't want to see. And I do think tech cards are a bit more powerful. And bees specifically, if you're playing against Totem Shaman and you bees a Flame Tongue Totem or a Manatide Totem, the game ends. Like, you have won at that point. It's over. Next game.
And it's not as if bees wasn't just a decent card in the deck anyway, right? Even if you weren't particularly know what you're facing, the card's just decent no matter what. It could very easily have made it into regular form lists, say on ladder. But yeah, it's a bit strange that you can almost guarantee what you're going to be going up against this week, but some players have literally just queued in the same decks no matter what, of the classes that they play a bit more often. But here, getting back into the specifics of this game, Bozzzton off to an okay start. And most importantly for him against Druid is he has a curve. Whether that's the strongest curve in the world we can talk about, but in this matchup as Hunter, you really want to be overbearing on the board, right? You don't want Druid to feel the wiggle room to actually just play out a Glowflies for full spells, because that is scary.
Yeah, and just for a little bit of housekeeping, while we were talking about tech cards, the Kalthus was discarded to the Fungal Fortunes, just to make sure that everyone is keeping track of that. That is no longer an out in Viper's deck.
Get that ticked off your bingo card, because we see KT discarded from that card, I think, more often than we see played in Druid. So that's definitely on there.
Yeah, people are like, actually, this happens too often. I'm going to cut it and then replace it with, another minion. Ysera Unleashed. Yep, that'll do the trick.
Yep. I'd replace it with Wisp.
Yes.
I discarded the worst card in my deck. Sick.
We will dig down into that story as the day progresses as well, I'm sure. Yeah. The Wisp meta. Oh.
Now this is looking scary. These are the spots that Hunter does not cope well with against Druid right now. I'm just going to very quickly, because I do believe I saw it earlier, but I want to double check before I make myself sound too stupid. But Bozzzton was running a Waste Warden, wasn't he? Oh, he wasn't. He was running Maev. Which means these Glowflies are going to stomp.
Time waits for no one.
I'm going to trust you on that one, because I can't even find Bozton's Hunter on the deck list that we have right now. We are functioning on very limited technology this week, folks. You're going to have to bear with us.
But in his 5 drops, he has Rotnest Drake, Faceless Corruptor, Boom Pistol, Bully, and then it goes down to the Maev Shadowstone. But because of the image, it looks like, she looks like Waste Warden. So I confused the cards when I was glancing at the list earlier on. So Bozzzton does not have a straight-up response to a Glowflies. And this is tough for Hunter to deal with, honestly, because, well, how does it kill the 2/2s? Even his secret package, there's no explosive in there. He runs Freezing Trap and a Snake Trap.
Ooh.
And
it's a bit unfortunate.
I don't like to talk bad of Hunter, but games do just go wrong like this, where your opponent plays Glowfly and you lose because you just can't kill all the 2/2s in time.
Yeah.
Especially the Solder Forest backup there for Viper.
Time moves quickly.
It's a very curious decision as well. Sort of in a metagame where you're expecting to be filled with a lot of aggro, a lot of totems, a lot of murlocs, you not only don't play Explosive Trap, but you then don't cover that gap with a Waste Warden, which can deal with all of those things that I just said, alongside the Glowfly Swarm from Druid. Curious.
So Glowfly would be a full board here. 2 would insta-die, so he'd have 5 left. I think if these 2 minions on board for Bozzzton trade into Glowflies, it's a win-win situation for Viper, right?
Agreed.
Because if they don't trade, he has Power of the Wild into Soul of the Forest. If they do trade, he has Power of the Wild into Soul of the Forest. He probably still wins. Do you know what I mean? Like the Hunter plays so in such a one-dimensional fashion from this point that Viper can just make Bozzdton play bad. And I don't mean that as an insult to Bozzdton, but as Hunter, sometimes you have to make these really bad trades when all you want to do is go face. And maybe with Dino Tamer Bran, a Kill Command and a Stormhammer, Bozzdton should just go face, lock and load.
Yeah, so that's why I'm thinking. Can we count backwards from Dino Tamer Bran? So he's got Dino Tamer Bran, which means Viper is at 17. So can he deal 17 damage over the next 2 turns while not being dead himself? I think the answer to that question is a resounding no, as far as I can see.
Yeah, he can. Well, he can definitely do the damage, 100%. He's just got that one turn he needs to not die.
So if he pushes 12, 14 this turn, he then only needs the Stormhammer swing to go face next turn, and he can use the entire rest of his turn reacting to the board. And
he does have Diving Griffin into, I'm going to say almost certainly Zigzaw. I don't think there's... Oh, or it could be a Faceless Corruptor. So if he got Diving Griffin to Zigzaw, that's 2 very good ways to play minions in the same turn.
I think I wanted that hero, the weapon swing to go face as well.
Wait, he didn't swing the weapon.
He did. He swung at a minion.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the deck list and was like, wait, did he just not swing so the damage didn't look right? Yeah, So is he planning on utilizing the Kill Command instead to make up the damage?
Possibly, yes.
So Griffin Kill Command?
Yeah, sure. I think he probably stopped some direct lethal that turn as well with like Power of the Wild Savage Roar or something by trading one off, but I don't think that's a hand you're ever beating anyway, so you can probably just forget about it.
So 16 damage, 17 with hero power from Viper. Completely open there. Full knowledge for Bozzdton. So Bozzdton, if there is no buffs and no extra damage anywhere, is not dead this turn. But he doesn't know that. I don't really think he has a say in the matter.
I wonder.
He just has to set up Dino Tamer Bran lethal, right? It's the only out.
Does he rot nest?
Pretty sure.
Change anything?
No, because if he rot nests, he doesn't set up Dino Tamer Bran lethal, right? I guess he would, because he still has the second swing from the weapon, yeah. But then he's losing to Ironbark, which he loses to anyway.
So what if he trades and Kill Commands a 3/3 here? Takes 2 3/3s off the board. Then there's 6 of it. There's 10. You need 12 from Viper. That's the thing. That's as good as you're ever going to get, right?
Yeah, and then 2 more swings face plus the Bran is the 14 that you need. So you're just dead to Ironbark. Yeah, that might just be the best you can do.
Oof. Okay. Interesting. But what does this open up? This doesn't even open up Weapon Swing Hero Power.
Beats Crystal Power this way?
Kind of cool. Power puts him to 11. It doesn't though, right? Because of Hero Power.
Okay, I mean, yeah, Crystal Power, Hero Power, sure. It beats just Crystal Power.
It's true. And now, all our maths thrown out the window.
Yep, Crystal Power and the Overflow and the Ironbark. I believe Bozzdton is just cooked.
Like I said, really tough game when you don't get an ultra aggro start as Hunter, and your opponent just has Glowflies on fire, and you don't say have Unleash, to clear up half of them or something. If you can't actually clear off tons of them, you really are in trouble. And I don't think that's going to cut it.
It's a good draw, but yeah, is it good enough? Thinking we Rotnest Drake this 4/6.
That is what Bozzdton has to do.
Yep, agreed. Set it up as best you can. Just hope that it goes far right.
But did he get it?
He's testing with the weapon swing. No, he didn't. He was just testing, right? Skip the animations by finding out if you can attack face or not.
Nope. in a very timely fashion, the Savage Roar turns up, and that does end the game. A fairly straightforward there one. Bozzzton, although didn't exactly do what we were talking about in a roundabout way, he set up a few things there. Played around some damage, but overall, very tough matchup there for Bozzzton. I think it's one of the ones that Hunter's a little bit weak to, even though we said Hunter's been doing very, very well this weekend in Grandmasters so far. I do feel that the Spell Druid matchup can be very, very tricky if they get that Glowflies on curve. But if they don't, you're looking... imagine if there's any other card available there, Bozzzton probably just wins. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I suspect Bozzzton had a clear plan there. He has the luxury of not having to like speak out loud and have a conversation with someone while he's trying to work out the lines there. So he can spend that time like counting, does killing one extra minion prevent me from dying from Savage Roar? Does, killing one less minion play around this healing out that my opponent might have? So, the real like salient point there was find a way to set up Dino Tamer Brand lethal. That was his only out, and that's what he was trying to do. Whether he differed from what we were talking about or not, we were both pulling towards the same point, which was just hit him in the face with a big dinosaur and make him explode.
It's normally the plan with Hunter at the moment, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of it is going, so can I make him be on 8 health on turn 7? And how do I achieve this? But that is going to be the series going up to a 2-1 lead for Viper now. He has the choice between Mage and Shaman. He's already taken a loss on his Shaman, and maybe he's a little bit worried about the weaknesses of his Mage versus Hunter, so that's why he's not really been going for it yet in the series. But he has his choice now. The only weird thing is that there is a little bit more of like the mental... I don't want to dive into pick order, but when there's no bans and there is a floating deck somewhere, you don't have to win with every single one. There is a mental game going on, right? Because if he thinks Bozzzton is always going to lock in Hunter, then he probably just never plays Mage. And then the decisions that revolve around that, if Bozzzton believes that, does he switch? And then so on. But I do believe Viper is going to be locking in Shaman for his next game.
Wow. Okay. It does make sense because there's a lot of threatening things that can happen to this Mage here. If Bozzzton chooses to go in certain directions, of course. I think it's worth noting that once you've played 3 decks in a series, if the series is not over at that point, you can still play the 4th deck at that point. All 4 decks are open at any point during the series. So Viper going with the Shaman here, I think makes some sense because he's expecting the Hunter to be coming out. And also worth noting, I set it up right at the start and said that Hunter was one of the best performing decks in this format right now. Positive win rate in every single matchup across all regions currently. And as of right now, it's 0-2 for Bozzzton. So pretty unexpected result just based on what the stats say so far.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Obviously, Bozzzton is here, so he top-8'd in the Swiss, so it's done. It's he's got there somehow, right?
Yeah.
But I don't like this list. Again, going into this week, expecting what I think we all expected to see. Variants of Token Shaman. The Murloc Paladin is fairly popular. Druids, and so on. He's running like Freezing Trap in his deck, which I just don't know why. When you can just lock out some of the other choices, and your deck is good versus Mage anyway, which Freezing Trap can do some work versus. I don't know. I just feel like this build doesn't quite cut it. I feel like this is a bit of an older build, like Boom Pistol Bully, when you're not going to be playing against a lot of the big Battlecry classes. I know Murloc Paladin can be a big Battlecry one along with Shaman, but I just feel there were other choices, like the missing Waste Warden we talked about is a big one, and even to a certain extent, there's no Ooze in this deck, which means that you're Shaman Paladin, you're expecting weapons, right? It's just a weird list as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you. Not even kind of. I just do agree with you, Raven.
Oh, I like it when you just agree with me. No caveats. No what ifs.
None. You're just right.
Vipers are real.
There's no punchline. If you're waiting for the punchline, you are actually just right. It's fine. We can move on.
I'll take it. Okay. If there's one thing I'm confident about, it's Hunter, okay? the coin Herring to mutate is the real play there if Viper was feeling it. But in the much more serious, I want to actually win this game of Hearthstone play, he did just go for the Novice Engineer card draw, but he does have access to a lot of potential in this mid game. Doesn't need the Bog Spine Knuckles, the Mutate, and Desert Hairs as and when he wants them.
Yeah, chose not to mutate the Novice Engineer either, which was always a play back in the day, in Battle Crow Shaman, Quest Shaman. Sometimes in the aggro matchups or against Priest. No, wait, that's covered. Priest was an aggro deck. So yeah, in the aggro matchups, you would heavily consider Novice Engineer Mutate in the early game. You want to just do manual Desert Hair Evolve,
Yes! Well, I don't think Viper wants to pass. He does have Farsight, which is a fantastic card, don't get me wrong. But
yeah, I agree.
But he gets to keep coin, so he can coin Knuckles anyway to set them up if he wants. He knows the only punish in the deck is Zephyrus exactly to break the Knuckles. So I like this. Get some on the board. Make Hunter to deal with it. Oh, he only used one.
Ooh, he does just use one.
I definitely would have jammed two. Does he? Do you think he wants the reroll on the hair on the turn he goes up?
Yeah, so he does just have now coin Knuckles into maybe not even swing, and then Desert Hair as the follow-up, depending on how much of a board he's got left with afterwards. So yeah, Mutate can be used to play nicely with that. It's also interesting now with Desert Hair and Mutate is which one you mutate is actually relevant, because you have a positional evolve card in your deck now. It's something that I was kind of got far too in my head thinking about while I was testing this deck.
See, it's your problem with thinking, Sol.
Yeah, imagine thinking, right? Come on.
Tough choice here as well is Bozzzton's turn he wants to do does not play nice with his mana that he has available to him. Diving Griffin into this 2/4 looks great, but it's off curve and he doesn't get to get the Feywing down. And I feel like whenever you can't get the evasive Feywing down on curve, the card just gets significantly worse. Because it only has 4 health, right? So it dies to a lot of things. If you play it on curve, it's so aggressive it gets there a lot of the time. Maybe he just double trades and plays it. I wouldn't even mind that. Yeah, I like this. Okay.
I mean, this is incredibly vulnerable to Bogspine Knuckles, though, right? Value trade, coin the Knuckles, smack your only minion, 5-drop ahead of the play at the end of the turn. That's a huge punish against, the most important card in their deck.
It is only evolving one card. Is that a semi-victory? I don't know.
Come on. You're a long way behind.
It's true, but the problem is, if he makes the play with the Diving Griffin, his board ends up empty, which means Viper can do whatever he wants anyway.
That's fair, yeah.
Whereas now he has a Diving Griffin in hand. So at least he can be a little bit more reactive. I think that's my issue, whereas I just liked the Feywing being on the board and just saying, well, you've got to do something about this.
Well,
definitely not worked out well.
Certainly did do something about it.
I wonder.
And now this Desert Hair follow-up, even if the 5-drop can be dealt with, which it really cannot by Bozzzton's hand right now. This could be one of those Zephyrus-only kind of boards that's coming out from Viper here against Highlander Hunter.
Evasive Worm looks real good to me. Wasn't taking his time, but I think he needs to. Ooh, okay. That would scare me a little bit with the Rot Nest, because when the Evolve Shaman is doing its job, it does go quite wide, and it's not like Bozzzton has a good way to narrow down that board. So it does surprise me he went for Rot Nest, because I feel like a lot of the times the Worm does what you want Rot Nest to do, but you get to aim it.
Sure.
Now, oh! Was that just the best?
Oh! Yeah, Viper,
no one
try
ever
and keep
was.
a straight face. Go ahead, try and keep a straight face.
Yeah, not even Viper.
Goodness.
Look at Bozzzton. It's done. It's like, right, who's my opponent match 2?
Yeah, exactly. He's tabbed out of Hearthstone, he's checking the brackets, he's looking at the next opponent's deck lists.
He's in the AI meme generator website to see what he can cook up for this next tweet he's going to follow up after this match ends. Because he has no clue what's going to happen now, because this just is over. He can...
What even was that?
Well, what's insane as well is for the Bogstruck Clacker, it's a good placement because he can get the Moshugon and the Bone Wraith evolved. And Millhouse and Cairn are just next to each other, we don't need any more evolves. We're good.
It's like the actual Stone Cold Nuts 2-drop. A top 5 6-drop. Probably a top 10 4-drop in the Bone Wraith. Lifesteal 4-drop, decent. Like, the Mogashon was the only whiff, and against Hunter, 1-7
Yeah, it's still
whiff.
good.
Yeah, sure. Jeez.
Insanity. And now there is Tiamat, but with the taunts available, it's only a matter of time. He gets to mutate onto the Moshagon, not too much of a surprise. And it almost didn't matter what he mutated into, right? It's just a heal at that point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Tiamat doesn't even deal with any of this. Realistically, it kills a Bone Wraith.
Yep.
So now, wait, does he survive? 8, 9, 10. Okay, does he have to Diving Griffin, Fairy Dragon, Imprisoned Fellhound?
What does the Diving Griffin do?
Draw his big boy Zixor for next turn?
Okay.
I believe,
Sure.
unless I'm missing... Am I missing a rush? I think he... No, because it's the Faceless Corruptor, which he has. Yeah, I think he needs Zixor Prime.
He doesn't play a Hogsteed or anything like that?
No. He's running Injured Tolvair and the Secret Package, which takes up a lot of that slot.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, I think it's the only way Bozzzton ever even survives this game, never mind wins it.
The problem is, like, the majority of his Zixor Prime, or like half his Zixor Prime, is just going to have to get smashed into this Bone Wraith anyway. Like, it's not even that good on the board that's going to come down.
Winds of the south.
Oh,
Neither's this.
no. No, I also agree with that.
Because my worry now is the next turn plan is Faceless Fairy Dragon. I feel like he just needed the 4/4/4s to just do something.
Yeah, maybe. I think he dies over 2 with that play. Whereas maybe the idea here is that the big taunt, he doesn't die over 2 and he gets to actually formulate some kind of plan based off his top deck this turn. Maybe he sees that's where his out is. I don't know. I think he's dealing in like single-digit percents to win this game, and we're all just kind of scrambling for some kind of plan, and they're all really bad because such is the nature of single-digit percents to win a game.
Such is the nature of getting wrecked.
Oh, the A-bomb! Oh, is the A-bomb an out? Is the A-bomb an out?
Now, if he had Zixor,
Yep.
he does have Diving Griffin to pop it.
It's
But that's
not enough,
about it.
though, is it? Yeah.
That is about it.
Alright.
The
Got excited for a
deserts-
second. Normal service has resumed.
Diving Griffin Desert Spear just doesn't cut the bastard, does it?
You don't want to go down that road again, Raven.
I know, yeah, I said that. I was like, why did I even bother?
I wonder.
Oh, the worst target. That's going to be the game, and that's going to be the series as Viper takes the first match of the day, 3-1. And did manage to allow a giggle in that last game, as that evolve was maybe one of the best evolves I've ever seen in terms of not craziest thing that ever happened and craziest minion that's ever been evolved into, but just one of just the flat out, for that turn in the game, strongest I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was just like premium stats across the board at like every slot. You know, like even the 4-mana 3/5 lifesteal taunt, it's not like a crazy minion. It's not like a top tier minion in terms of you put it in your constructed deck, but in terms of the stats you get for a 4-drop, that's premium. And it was just like that across the board. Like it was so insane.
And they just tick the boxes versus Hunter as well, right? Because again, the life, a lot of the times Hunter in rough matchups, you win by saying, right, I'm just going to push some damage and hope I get there. Well, lifesteal, massive health taunt minions. It was just perfect for Viper there, wasn't it? It was insane. But I will say, and I will go back to it, I just don't think the Hunter deck really had the right mindset ready for this meta of what you would generally expect to see. So it was just a strange one for me. Let's take a look at the bracket, though, for Group A, is what we are going to be playing through today. as we just see it, Viper take a win over Bozzzton. So he's going to be in that winner's portion. You should be used to this by now. You've been keeping an eye on the old Grandmasters over the past few weeks, but he's got potentially one more match. If he wins it, he will move on to Sunday and guarantee him a top 4 spot in the final week of Swiss. But if not, it is double elimination. So Bozzzton is now out, as you can see there. He does have one more life left, and he'll be playing the loser of our next match, which is going to be Silvername versus Swids.
Yeah, maybe, because it was the first match, we were spending a little bit too much time that series, kind of, talking about what the metagame looks like and which decks we like and which decks we don't, and not that was actually one of the most important matchups that we're going to see, all day and potentially all weekend, because both Viper and Bozzzton are floating in purgatory right now. They're two of the players that can be in either Division A or Division B, and the simple version for both of them is that they each need to get top 2. To be guaranteeing their spot. Otherwise, it comes down to ifs, buts, and maybes. So obviously, Viper winning that, he marches along to that progress of taking down that top 2 spot. Bozzzton is now looking a long, long, long way away from doing the same thing.
But still possible, because if Bozzzton goes through the group, there's 2 people from each group face the other person from the group, right? From the different group. So basically, they will not face each other in the semis. They will face their counterparts. Almost.
Oh, you're saying they could both
so
make
they could
the
both get top
finals?
2.
Yeah,
they
sure.
could both get top 2, which is insane if it happens. I believe that might be true from some of the other players as well in the other group. But the big deal for me there is overall that Viper's looking pretty strong. Yeah, he did get good outcomes from his Evolve, but I think, again, as we expect from Viper, play very solid. And also, Viper is known to lean towards slightly different decks, messing about with different stuff. I know he streams now again. When he streams now and again, he is streaming like, oh, I'm just trying this out today. And it's just kind of like a weird style of deck. So maybe it might be small, but maybe this just was a little bit easier for him than it would be for some other players who are like, I'm going to play, Pain Warrior to top 10 legend all day, every day for the next 3 weeks. You know what I mean? So just maybe used to the bit more variety in terms of play.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's a very, very creative player. I think, sometimes that creativity is very much what carries him to huge results, and sometimes that creativity kind of fails him a little bit and he goes a step too deep. But in this case, I think his lineup's pretty solid. I think from what we've seen so far, Highlander Paladin over Murloc Paladin, which just looks like an atrocious Hearthstone deck based on what we've seen so far, certainly seems like the right choice. And yeah, personally, I honestly don't think Evolve Shaman is that far off from actually like being some kind of contender in the metagame, like towards the bottom of it for sure, but like a playable deck, I really don't think it's that far off from being that. So I'm happy to see his lineup. I think he's got it pretty close to right this week.
Just wait for the Mogu D-nerf. It's going to go back to 7, and then we'll be seeing some more Evolved Shamans on the old ladder. But anyway, let's move on to our next match of the day. It's going to be Silvername versus Swids. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sottle, but both of these players are already locked in